Okay. Hello, everyone. Big Lair here from Crypto Coaching and Training and from Intuition Development. Those are my two YouTube channels, and I also have Patreon channels with the same names. Crypto Coaching and Training deals with everything crypto, from learning how to pick solid cryptocurrency projects to getting onto exchanges, downloading and using crypto wallets, exit strategies, you name it. And my other channel is Intuition Development, which has the goal of teaching anyone how to develop their intuitive abilities, which some people may call psychic abilities. Due to a lack of honest teachers with a passion for helping others develop their God-given natural intuitive abilities, I created this channel. Now, I want to be upfront. While my YouTube channel has videos on various woo-woo subjects, only my Patreon channel has videos on techniques and practical lessons for developing your intuitive/psychic abilities. Today's guest is like me in that she walks in both of these worlds, cryptos and the intuitive psychic realm. Okay, let's get into this. Today, I'm very happy to be interviewing Sonia Novick. I hope that's the right pronunciation. Better known as Sonic Nova. She's a psychic, a medium, a medical intuitive, a relationship expert, a certified remote viewer, a lifestyle coach, and an energetic healer. She has been doing all of this for over 40 years. Now, I could go on and on about Sonia here, but please go to her website at sonicnova.net to get all of the details and to see what great things she has to offer. Okay, Sonia, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, Larry, for inviting me.
Now, the first time that we talked was a couple weeks ago. I didn't know anything about you other than what a mutual acquaintance had said to me. And then I did a little research and I was really surprised to see all of the things you've been doing. You are quite busy.
Yeah, I've been actually, it's kind of interesting because I really stepped into this world, the psychic world. In 2007, I was kind of forced into it. I was in the venture capital and also project financing industry for about 11, 12 years when it all collapsed on me.
Wow.
And it was like, in 2005 is when, I actually ended up going homeless. And then 2 years later, it's when the market crashed, right?
Yeah.
The real estate market crashed. So I ended up like going from that. I thought, I'm going to try being an insurance agent. And it was terrible. And it was a really bad decision because that led me to being homeless, basically. I was renting from a gal that lived, I was in Tri-Cities, Washington when that happened, because I moved from Hood River, Oregon to Tri-Cities to be this insurance agent, and failed miserably at it. And from there I ended up going to what I call Spokane. Spokane, Washington is it's a hotbed for psychopaths. I'll just put it that way, seriously. Okay. And when I was there, Larry, I was so creeped out. I lived there for about 1.5 years, ended up living there because of a guy that I got involved with, and I couldn't wait to get out. And in my experience is that it's very dark there. And it's interestingly enough, there's a lot of cases of MS, huge amount of cases of MS.
Wow.
Multiple sclerosis. So I don't know if that has something to do with the environment or what, but I couldn't wait to get the heck out of there. Didn't want to be there at all. And from there, I was coaching. I was on Real Coaching Radio as an intuitive coach, which is no longer, but we were on the internet. We were doing like what YouTube does now. And this coach that was in Salt Lake City invited me. I said, I don't have a lot of money. I barely have any money, and, I had probably like, I only had 1 month's rent. And if he would have been nice, he could have said, look, just give me $500 and I'll give you 3 months rent. But he didn't do that. So I was there for 2 months, and then a lot of crazy things happened. My ex, who was totally a psychopath, was trying to find me. And the awesome thing about Salt Lake City is the police department and the captain that I spoke to was like sent to me from heaven, because I told him what my situation was. I did file several complaints while I was in Spokane with this person, and so there was a record of it. So he checked it out and he realized there was a record of it, and so he said, I'll do you one better, because I said, I think I need to file a restraining order. He says, well, there's no point in filing a restraining order since you're in Salt Lake, and he's all the way, and he knew that I was in Salt Lake. I don't know how the hell he knew that. And since he's in Spokane, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to send him a cease and desist order. No contact, no third-party contact. You cross state lines, you're crossing into federal territory, and we'll immediately put you in jail. So after that, I never heard from him again. Thank God. That was the end of his, pursuit. And then I ended up only 2 months. And at that point, I had called my ex-husband, which were really good friends, but he was with somebody else, and he couldn't, I couldn't really stay with him, and he had 2 kids. And
Sure.
he said, I'm really sorry. He's in San Diego, and he said, I just can't do this. And my sister, that's a year and 2 months older than me, totally said, oh, you're unstable, you can't stay with me. I'm like, duh, I'm going homeless. Yes, I'm unstable. I just need a hand up. I need a couple of months to get my feet, get it back on my feet, get a job, and just keep going. And none of those doors opened. And also my other half sister, who lives in New Mexico, did the same thing. They both just, family's not as thick as blood.
Sure.
But what happened is I had somebody that would listen to my radio show every week, and her name is Heather, and I was helping her so much with the radio show that somehow, I don't know how it happened, that she was able to get a hold of me directly. And we started talking. I told her my situation. She said, look, I've been homeless. I was homeless since I was 5. Wow. And I was homeless in the streets of where was it? Washington, somewhere in state of Washington. I think it was basically where all the people that were doing, so it was, I'm not sure where in Washington, but it was one of the major cities. And so she said, I was homeless since I was 5 because I ran away from my mom, who totally abused me. So I totally get it. I totally understand it. She said, look, don't worry. I said, I only have, by the time I get there, I may not even have $50 to my name. And so my ex-husband was really kind and lent me $500 to be able to get a U-Haul. I had all my stuff in storage when I got to Salt Lake. I had a whole bunch of stuff that I abandoned in this house with this crazy person, because he claimed that I owed him $10,000, which I didn't, But just to get him out of my hair, I just left furniture and I left all kinds of stuff. And I couldn't fit it in the truck anyway, so I just had this 26-foot truck that was all jumbled because I had people that came and packed me in 4 hours, and I left with that and my cat. And then I got into another bad situation with the guy that invited me into Salt Lake City. He was another whack job. It was just one whack job. So I was so relieved to be with this woman in Las Vegas. And that's the door that opened for me. It's like, that was destiny, And so she said, I only have a small apartment. I have 2 kids. And, and I said, I'll couch surf. I'll stay with you on the couch. It's okay. I don't have to stay in their beds. And they were living in pretty meager conditions, even though they were living in nice part of a condo area in Las Vegas that wasn't in the bad district. It was in the good district. My cat was pretty phenomenal. I mean, he would stay on the couch with me. When I wasn't there, he would just leave, so the kids wouldn't bug him. He was amazing. He was just, this cat was like a human, he was just my companion. I called him my familiar. And so I was in Vegas for about a couple of months, and then I got a job. I got a gig with a company that was selling timeshares, and that didn't really work out. But I got another gig that I found on luckily, where was it? On one of the posting websites where you can find homes and all kinds of things. And this guy was really honest, and he had a company that was training security guards. And so I went to do the interview. He had a woman that was working in the office. I signed up as one of the salespeople. you know, because that's
Sure.
my back. I have a good background in sales. So I started doing that, and I started doing pretty good. I was still living kind of with Heather. I had my little computer with me so I could do the shows. You know, I was like living on the edge, like you know, like they say, you know, I'm one step from being on the street.
Sure.
And then what happened is I started working for Vance and I met these guys that were top salespeople at the timeshare place. And I told them what I was doing. And I told them that they were paying me $500 for every person that I signed up in sales that came in to do, you know, they paid like, I think they were paying like 2,000 or 2,500. So I got 500 of it, and the rest of it went for the trainers and for the
Sure.
school. And these guys were like, 500, damn, you make better money than we do. And so they said, we want to join you. And I told Vance, and he goes, I'm going to make you my sales manager, you know, and you're going to manage these guys. So I did. And these guys, I mean, this guy was a machine, you know, within 2 months, 3 months, he was making 10, 20 grand a month. And I was
Wow.
making 5% of that, which was awesome, you know. And then there was this other guy that wasn't as good as him. You know, I was making 5% of, he was making like 5,000, but you know, all of a sudden I had a whole bunch of money. The
Sure.
first thing I did is, of course, I had to move out of Heather's apartment. At that point, I think I had already done that. This couple put an ad up on Craigslist. It was Craigslist where I found Vance, you know, and where I found this couple. And they were in the really bad part of town, like really bad. You know, but I was like, you know, I work at home. I work on my computer. I work with Vance. I wasn't working the timeshare anymore. And, you know, so the first thing I did when I ended up with like, I think it was 5 grand that they paid me, I went and bought a car, you know, because I needed mobility. So I bought a little
Oh, sure.
Cabriolet. And the next thing I did is right after I got the car, I actually went to all, you know, I was guided. Like my intuition was like, I looked online at all these centers, these spiritual centers that were in Vegas, and it's a big industry there. I didn't realize that. I thought that Vegas would be sex, gambling, you know, prostitution, all that stuff, drugs.
Sure.
And sure, there's part of that, but there's a big spiritual community there.
Wow,
Really,
that's interesting.
you know, and you know, following gurus to all kinds of people, and so I ended up going to Victoria's place, which was called the Las Vegas Healing Center. And she had a pretty big place, and she had a huge following. She was a Russian woman. And I went there, and I told her, I said, you know, I'm a psychic, and I'm a channel. And I was channeling, at that time I was already channeling. I was channeling on the Real Coaching Radio. I didn't even know I could channel her. I just, all of a sudden, one day I was doing my show, and I had a co-host. Her name was Gina. She was really cool. She helped me out of the mess that I was in. And she noticed that, and she goes, my God, Sonia, you're a channel. Do you know that? I go, what the hell's a channel? And she goes, well, you know, like Esther Hicks. And I was like, oh, got it. And she goes, the information you're bringing in is phenomenal. And she's the one that encouraged me to go out there and go start doing this publicly in these different spiritual centers. And I said, great. So I went to meet with Victoria. I told her, you know, I kind of showed her on YouTube, and she saw it, and she was very intuitive to it. And she goes, I want you here. And she basically said, look, to introduce you to all my people, let's do it on donation, because then more people will come. You know, later on you can charge whatever you're going to charge. But I was always super reasonable. And so Victoria basically, you know, put out a thing that there was this, you know, channel in town. You know, she did a great job of marketing. She's very good at marketing. And 50, 60 people came to my first event. And, you know, I was planning to charge like initially like maybe $20 a pop, you know, because that was reasonable at the time. People can afford that.
Sure.
And so, you know, I didn't do that on the first one, but then on the next the next ones, I started doing that because I started getting a huge following. And so I went to the Las Vegas Healing Center. I went to several other healing centers that were all over Vegas. I had my car, right, that I could go now and go to these different places. And luckily my car and I kind of like did this psychic connection that I knew there was a problem with the heater but my car lasted like 5-6 years. I mean, there was this I don't know how to explain it, Larry. It's like we were like, you know, like it was a part of me, you know, and I was consciously like watching it, and it would get overheated and it would tell me I'm overheating, and I would stop and put that stuff that cools it down. And you know, and I had a bunch of mechanical work on it. Long story short, I traded it in a few years ago, but you know, I was in Vegas and started becoming super popular and was known for being authentic and credible. You know, I was known for not being a person that would, there's a lot of psychics in Vegas that rip people off.
Sure, I can
They get
imagine.
into their graces, and then they find out where they have all their money and all their jewels. And I stayed with a woman like that got totally ripped off by a psychic, and that the psychic told her, I'm going to hold on to all your belongings. Oh my God. So that you're protected. You know, she's invented this whole freaking criminal, you know, totally criminal. And of course, Lisa didn't want to hear me when I was going to tell her, look, she ripped you off. You know, she already sold all your stuff. It's gone. Like, you got to move on with your life. You know, if this is all you have left, this is all you have left. And she was living by the grace of God, because she was living in a house that she hadn't paid the mortgage in a year and a half.
Wow.
You know, unbelievable. You know, it was like, and I told her that, I said, you're being protected by God. You're being protected by a higher source. And that's why they're not coming after you to kick you out of your house. You know, but you got to get a job or do something, because she was so depressed because of all the things. And I said, you got to get back on your feet, Lisa, because otherwise you are going to be kicked out, you know? And so, and I said, you don't want to experience what I experienced. She asked me when I was living by the Wynn, the Hotel Wynn, which is the worst part of town. Worst.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, the house, the apartment in condo, or whatever you want to call it, apartment, that it was a lower apartment. I only had my bike, and I would go and bike to the pharmacy or the drugstore. I'd try and go to the, you know, to the bus station to go get groceries. And, you know, it was all Section 8. There was a bunch of druggies. I mean, I would make myself invisible when I was on my bike to the people that were in the apartments, not people driving, because I didn't want to get run over.
Sure.
But it was really like a very hairy situation. And I was with this couple for about 4 or 5, maybe 6 months at the most. The problem with Vance's business is that there was another company that was training all the people there, and it's all mafia. And they found a way to get rid of him and his company, and, you know, and closed his company down, which really sucked, because that was a sweet deal, you know. But
Sure.
so that really threw me right into being a full-time psychic and being a full-time channeler. And when I would do these events, you know, people were just so blown away by the information that was coming out that nobody knew about but them, that I tell them afterwards, I say, well, you can make an appointment with me. You know, you can have a session with me, and you can have it at my place. You know, a lot of things happened where I was living with students, you know, all that fell apart. You know, I lost my cat. I found him. It was crazy. I mean, and finally found a place that was in a pretty nice neighborhood in Vegas. I had a couple of students that lived in that neighborhood, and I was teaching people how to channel and how to be a psychic and how to be a trance channel, and kind of like what you're doing. You know, I was totally into that and helping a lot of people. And then I was doing the healings, and I was doing all of it was channel, all of it. None of it was, I can't say none of it was me. It was all channeled, except for the classes weren't channeled, you know.
Sure.
But the healing that happened were phenomenal. You know, just like I have mind-blowing testimonials from people that had MS and it was completely gone. I mean, completely gone. Stuff like that happened that was miraculous, that built me a fantastic reputation, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in Vegas for 2.5 years. Love what I'm doing. I have rented this house. That's a 2-story house. I had one of the people that was my clients came to live with me for a little while. She was on disability. She was ex-military, so she could easily pay the rent. She only stayed with me for about 2 months, and then she disappeared. But by then I was making really good money that I could pay. You know, the rent was really cheap, because these were houses that were going to go into foreclosure, and
Oh, sure.
they had so many foreclosures that the banks needed people to live in them. So they wouldn't, like, people wouldn't go in there, because people were going in there and ripping off the toilets. And, you know, after the people that were evicted left, there was people that were breaking in, you know, meth heads that were looking for copper, you know, or looking for anything valuable that they could sell, you know. So I rented one of these places, and I initially rented it with this couple, and within a month they were gone. I was like, you're out of here. And that's where I started having, I still went to places to do my events. I met this woman that was a yoga teacher, and that was through Mary Pat. We're still very good friends. She's, you know, I really love Mary Pat. She saved my ass so many times in Vegas. And she actually introduced me to Olga. And Olga has a yoga studio, and I didn't know this, okay? But I went and did an Olga event, and there was 20, 30 women there, only women. One of the women that was there was the wife of the police department captain of the drug enforcement, whatever they call it, I don't know, but he was like the head guy, okay?
Sure.
I have no idea. And I didn't know this either till I came to live in in Ashland, that I met another psychic that was a famous psychic supposedly in Vegas, and she was really sick at that point, who told me that it didn't matter if you channeled, didn't channel, it didn't matter what you did. If you were a psychic, you would have the FBI show up at your door, have you thumbprinted, right?
Sure.
And, you know, and then you would have the green light, because they need to track you in case you're a crook.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here I am, you know, I met at Olga, I met this woman that actually was married, and unfortunately this guy passed away from cancer, and I knew it. I mean, I channeled it, you know, and I remember that channeling, and he said, please don't tell my wife. And I was like, you got to do something about this. Why don't you let me do healings with you? And he was like ready to go. It's like, no, it's okay, you know. But I think this guy actually told the FBI to leave me the hell alone.
Mm.
I think this guy told the FBI, because the FBI and them, you know, do a lot of cases together. He said, look, leave this woman alone. She's legit. She's the real deal. And she's never asking for more than her hourly payment, you know, what she charges by the hour. And she's very reasonable. Because at the time I was only charging $120 an hour. Super reasonable, you know.
Sure.
So nobody bothered me, you know. And so I met these amazing people, had these amazing experiences down there. And then I was just doing my own, and you can't do that in Vegas either. You can't have 25 people show up at your house and do a whole thing there. Usually the police or the FBI shows up, but because the police was sitting there at these events, you know, in the channelings, and they were the guy that has the really like frizzy hair from India, I forget what his name, Baba.
Sai Baba.
Sai Baba. They were Sai Baba devotees. So his wife came over to my house. He came over to my house. There was a whole bunch of Debbie, who was the attorney for the police department, came. We were great friends. I mean, you know, all these people that, you know, knew that I was the real, so they were my friends, and they were like telling, you know, the law enforcement, just leave her alone.
Wow, that's great.
You know, it was awesome. It was just like God sent. And so I was there for 2 years, and there was this guy, he still lives there, named Marty. And Marty, actually, I had finally left Vegas after 2.5 years. I was guided to move to Mount Shasta. Okay. The beings basically said, you need to move to Mount Shasta. You're not going to be safe in Vegas. It's a very dangerous place, and it's going to get even more dangerous, you know, in the next few years because of all the earth changes. You know, and that's what they were channeling about. They were channeling about all these earth changes that we're experiencing now. And so they said, you need to go there early, and you need to get to know everybody, and you need to settle in and get to know all the people so that you can be part of the small community, because that's one of the communities that's really safe. You know, right now I live in Ashland. I live in Ashland, Oregon. I don't live in Shasta. But when it gets really dangerous, I am moving back to Shasta. And I do have a lot of friends and a lot of connections there, right? So I was just guided. And when I came up here, up to Shasta in 2009, 9909, I did an event for free, no charging my students or anything. There was like 10 of us. It was 9 of us, actually, including me. And we rented a van together. You know, we paid for the gas together. I said, if we cover all the bills, you know, then I don't have to pay for this and have a little bit money left over. Let's just do that. And we did it as a team. And we had this phenomenal experience up on the mountain. It is a very powerful mountain. It definitely has both polarities going. That are very, you know, some people say that it's the twin sister to Mount Fuji, you know, Mount Shasta is. So we had this incredible experience where I channeled this fairy being, and that was down in an area that's called Sand Flats. And I didn't know this at the time, right? Because I just come up here. I come up to Shasta every 10 years to visit. I always wanted to live here. Or I always wanted to live in Shasta. And all of a sudden, this fairy being, I just sat there and this fairy being came in and started channeling. And she set up this grid, and she said, this is where you guys are going to sleep. The whole idea of going up to Shasta was to see unicorns. To actually see and have an experience with unicorns. Because there's these books that I actually still have, that I will get in the future, that were about unicorns and unicorns being real. And I forget the guy's first name, but he's a very famous photographer. Varva is his last name. And he actually took pictures of unicorns, literally and had other people take pictures of unicorns, you know, entered into that dimension, I don't know, you know, and took the literal pictures of him sitting, and there's a unicorn putting his head over this guy's shoulder. I mean,
now, was that in Mount Shasta?
No. This was like, that one happened in Africa.
Okay.
They were all over the world. He found unicorns everywhere. He found them in Mexico, in the forests, in the rainforest. He found them in the Sahara Desert. He found them by the ocean, everywhere. I mean, wow. He was a multi-dimensional photographer, is the way I'll put it. And if you know, unicorns I have known is one of the titles of one of his books that you can look up. And then there's another title I forgot. I bought those 2 books because as collector's items. And so I had read all about it, and it said right there what to do if you want to encounter a unicorn, and how he had gotten this information from an older lady that was dying that passed this information on to him in Spain. And so it said not to eat meat, not to wear any shoes or anything that had leather on it, that you had to be free of meat, any kind of meat, for like 10 or 20 days, you know, so that your body wouldn't have that odor. You also wanted to fast a little bit on like fruit juices and stuff like that, and regular like veggie juices, so that you would have a nice odor that would invite them. So my whole team, we all got together, we talked about it, and they were like, let's do this. You know, and there was a really unified group of students around me, that we became pals, you know, and so we all got together and we all did this. Everybody stayed on the tree. I said, if one of you cheats, none of us will get to have this experience, and you'll waste your money, you know, paying for all this stuff to come up here for nothing.
Sure.
You know? And because we're going to enter into a different dimension. I have had experiences. You know, anytime that I go up to Mount Shasta, I have these phenomenal magical experiences. And so it's very multidimensional, and that's what I shared with these guys. So we basically, everybody was clean. We had that fairy being that showed up. The other thing that, excuse me, unicorns love, they love dates and figs. Love them. So when we got to this area, I created this altar for them. And I put the figs and I put the dates on the altar, and we put flowers, because we got flowers in town, and we put flowers all around it, and it was beautiful, beautiful altar. That was right by a tree stump that had been cut. And so we were basically just hanging out with the fairy that came in and channeled through me, that set up the grid, basically, this
Okay.
dimensional grid. And then what happened is that we stayed there, we camped. None of us had tents, okay? And keep in mind that Mount Shasta has mountain lions, bears, you know, a lot of wildlife, you know. No wild boars, thank God, but lots of deer. But it was like we were just guided, and we all kind of slept together. There was one big tree and another one here, and we slept in between these two trees in a flat area. That's why they call it sand flats. And we had these bed rolls, and we had our you know, our like camping gear, you know, the sleeping bags. And so we're all sleeping, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, this owl comes right through, right above me, and starts hooting, hoot, 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 woke me up. And I was like, oh, it's time. It was like coming here to
A message.
Yeah, like a message. And I really feel like these beings, these animals, are not only messengers, but they come and they shift dimensions. You know, they create a new dimension. So I woke everybody up. I said, come on, guys, let's wake up. It's time, it's time, it's time. It was like, swear, it's like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Here's the thing that blew my mind. Where the fairy that came channeling through me created this like dome. It was like imagine it a dome, but extended out, not totally circular, but more extended out, and through a 50-foot, maybe 100-foot parameter. Okay.
Okay.
Inside the dome, it was 70 degrees all night long. And I knew this because not when that whole occurrence happened, but when I woke everybody up at 3 o'clock in the morning, we sat up and we were, you know, we got like, I started looking, and all of a sudden I saw this little unicorn that was like playing hide and go seek with us behind this tree, you know, that would kind of lean in and look at us and then lean back. No, we didn't do hallucinogenics. There was no drugs involved. We were all sober. and we had other unicorns that showed up. We even had a centaur show up.
Wow.
Centaur. Right? That's a half man, half horse.
Yeah.
It showed up. We all saw it. We all saw the unicorns. We all saw all this happen. It was just most amazing, magical experience. And they were all kind of playful with us. They didn't let us come near them. We just sat in our sleeping bags. We didn't get up to try and go pet them. That was one of the things that the book said. Just leave them alone. If they approach you, you're fortunate. If they approach you and put their head, you know, right on your shoulder, amazing. You know, but that's what this guy, the photographer, had experienced. And he said, if you go try and chase them, they'll disappear. They'll vanish. So we all knew that, and we all sat in our, you know, and we were hoping that one of them would come up, you know, but none of them came up to us. But there was a centaur that walked around the perimeter. There was 3 or 4 or 5 unicorns, you know, some of them that were mature, some of them were babies. And then all of a sudden it just like the owl came back, hooted, and they were gone.
Wow,
So
interesting.
the owl came in, opened the portal. The owl came back, closed the portal. In the morning when we woke up, we looked at the altar, and all the figs, all of the dates were eaten, gone. It was awesome. And trust me, we didn't have any bear. Imagine this. I mean, imagine putting figs and dates out there when there's bears out there, wild bears.
That's not a great idea.
Not a very good idea. That's kind of like stupid on my part, you know, but nothing happened because we were in this other kingdom, in this other realm that was not in this realm, in this physical realm where the bears were or anything like that. So we all had this incredible experience. That morning we woke up and we looked around us, and in this book, it shows you what a unicorn's print looks like their footprint. compared to a horse, and it looks like a heart.
Hmm.
And we had heart like all over the place. There's no horses there. And we had all these imprints of the unicorns all around us. It was just like
Wow.
walking around that morning was just like, this really happened, because we didn't believe it. Like we woke up and we were like, were we all dreaming together the same dream?
Sure.
This really happened or not? And it was like, yeah, it really happened. And the prints were everywhere. The figs and dates were gone. And I got up like at 7 o'clock in the morning. It was still very cold. Now you got to think September in Mount Shasta, it starts to get pretty cold at night.
I would think so.
Temperature drops to about 40 degrees. Okay.
Wow.
Not freezing, but 40 degrees. So when I had to go relieve myself in the morning and I walked out of the perimeter, I immediately noticed that the perimeter, there was no frost on the ground. It was all nice and warm. And when I walked out of the perimeter to go to the bathroom, there was frost everywhere, freaking colder than cold.
Sure.
It was like, wow. And then when I came back into the perimeter, it was 70 degrees. I was like, this is freaking magical. And I have 8 other people that can verify this, that can actually verify what I'm saying to you. And after that event, the next morning, because we spent the weekend here, we went up into the mountain, into a part of the mountain that we were guided to, which was, God, a 4 or 5 hour hike. It was crazy because by the time we were done with that hike and we were ready to come home, we hadn't eaten. We were all starving. We brought water with us. I told people bring water, but everybody was exhausted. But we got up to this area where there was a lot of rocks, and we actually had another encounter with ETs. And the ETs that approached us, I was channeling them. Again, I was channeling, right? I did a lot of channeling where I left my body and they would come in and channel. And the ET that came in, his name was Anouk. He was male. They were supposed to be Anunnakis, but not the bad Anunnakis. I don't know what that means, okay? But they came and delivered this amazing message. And what I remember, which tripped me out, is that I could see the shimmer because the ship was completely veiled, but it was right there. It was literally there physically. It wasn't like they were telepathing from miles away.
Sure.
And especially when Anouk said, look up to your left, because we were all sitting in this area. Look over there up to your left, and what do you see? And people started looking. They were like, there's like a shimmer. It almost looks like there's a cloak on a ship. And he goes, yeah, that's right. That's our ship. And the moment he said that, it was so bizarre. All of a sudden, we had 2 black ops that came because there is a secret, in Shasta, there is a secret, military base, okay?
Oh, okay.
And so these black ops helicopters came up and were circling around us all over the place. And that's when Anouk said, look, we got to go because they've spotted us. Magnetically, they can feel, they can detect the frequency with their equipment, and we got to go. And so I basically came back and I was able to see that shimmer, and then all of a sudden, boom, gone. And about 2 minutes later, the Black Ops helicopter stopped circling around us, and we hiked down. That's just
Wow.
one little experience out of like hundreds that I've had, being on this planet.
Now, you mentioned channeling a bunch, and for people who aren't familiar with channeling, could you just give like a brief description of that? And then if you could just compare it to what you consider, like what is, if you say a psychic, what is that? And then a medium, how does that compare with channeling?
Sure. Okay, so channeling to me is a way that we can get communication telepathically. But when you're doing trance channeling, which I was doing and I don't do anymore, by the way, because I did get overtaken.
Oh, okay.
I thought that isn't that funny? When we are arrogant, and I was arrogant about it, and we think that I could feel the energy and I'll know when they're good or bad. we get we get tested. We really get tested by the universe. But at the time I was trance channeling, and what trance channeling is that you enter into a trance state.
Okay.
So it's not you, the personality, me, Sonia, that was doing the channeling. And I would open myself up and allow another energy to overtake me, literally, to take over my body.
Okay.
And communicate all this information. And that's when I was doing that, and I did it for 2.5 years very successfully, and I wasn't overtaken. And that's something that I have witnessed in some very famous channels, that they get corrupted after a period of time. That they're not channeling that pure energy they were channeling before, that something gets in the way, and it probably has to do with our ego personality, you know, that corrupts the message and the real, like the light message as opposed to the dark message.
Sure.
You know, and I witnessed that with a lot of people that I've seen channeled. I can't even remember their names, but, you know, even Esther Hicks, you know, you see her now and she's nothing to what she was 20 years ago. She isn't. It's not the same frequency, you know. She's just more telling people what to do, and I could tell it's a distorted energy. But that's trance channeling. Now to get back to channeling. Channeling is kind of a way of mediumship. It's all telepathic communication. Let's just be really straight about this, okay?
Okay.
It's telepathic communication that you're getting from an outside source, whether it's an extraterrestrial source, you know, where it's, you know, men from Mars, if you want to call them that, for you people that are like, or, you know, reptilians, or, you know, Arcturians, or, because there's benevolent ETs out there, and there's humanoid ETs like us that are very advanced and very benevolent, and they care nothing to do with us, to be honest with you. You know, that's, you know, you guys are going to have your own evolution, and, you know, we're already evolved and we're already over here, you know. And so to me, if you're a medium, what that word really means is that you're in the in-between place between the dead and the living. You're the communication device between the dead and the living. That's what a medium is. And it's nothing more than telepathy. It's nothing more than having your inner senses open so the information can either come auditorily, visually, internally, okay? Or it can even come as a smell, you know, or it comes as a feeling. So all those senses that we have on the outside, we have on the inside, and we just pick them up on the inside.
Okay.
And so when I do mediumship sessions is when people want me to contact their loved ones and communicate with them, you know, and let you know what your loved one is, where they're at, what they're thinking, et cetera, et cetera. That to me is mediumship. That's a really good thing to do, to have closure with people that have died that you didn't get closure with. That's a really good tool, you know. Yeah. If you miss them, et cetera, a lot of psychics take advantage of that. A lot of psychics do, you know, because then they know that if they, you know, keep pulling out that string and leaving you hanging, you know, you're going to come back for more information. I don't do that. You know, I am a being that gets cared for by the divine. I don't need to play those games, you know. So
sure.
But that's mediumship. Channeling, when you're channeling and the information is coming in, it is a form of telepathy. And channeling when you're a conscious channel, which means that you're here, your personality's here, and you're not taking off, you're not trance channeling and leaving this realm, you know, with your, if you like, with your personality. That's another form to me of telepathy. But channeling is more like bringing you messages from your higher self, from guides, if you like, etc. I don't, you know, because of my experience that I had of being a trance channel and being overtaken, I don't really like to teach trance channeling anymore, because you never know what's going to happen.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that.
You know, none of us have the ability. I don't care who you are, because there's Barbara Marciniak. She's another channel that's totally corrupted now, completely. I watch her and I go, oh my God, she's overtaken by the reptilians, you know, and she doesn't even know it. but there's people like that they didn't quit when they were told to quit. It's like I was told to quit. When this whole incident happened, that was the message from the divine going, it's time for you to quit this, okay? Don't continue playing this game because you're going to hurt a lot of people. And I just quit. I was like, when that whole thing happened, I was like, I'm done. What I came to realize is that the infinite presence that I am, my soul will never mislead me. It will never like take me to a wrong place or give wrong information. But guides are just the same as trans-channeling. Because weren't these beings the guides that came in and guided all these people that weren't me? Right? So that's the way I looked at it and went, I'm not doing this anymore. I had to change my whole paradigm, and I had to change my whole way of doing this, you know, just so that I would feel at peace in my heart that I didn't hurt anybody. And, you know, and I could stay being authentic, because that's my primary thing. And I've always been that way. I've always been like, I mean, look, you know, I had a water filtration manufacturing company. You know, I've done all these other things, and I just have moved to career. When it's time to move and it's time to shift what you do, you just shift, you know. And I've been like that with my intuitive stuff. I've been like, okay, is this like adventure done, and I'm going to start a new one doing something else, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I come from. I don't come from a place of holding on to it and making it like, this is not my supply. My gift is not my supply, financially speaking. It's just my gift, you know, that I came here to share with everybody. So channeling to me, and I've seen a lot of people, and that's why, you know, some of the people in our group were going to people that were channeling and supposedly channeling Archangel Michael. And I said, how are you sure that it's Archangel Michael? How is that channel absolutely sure that that's Archangel Michael, and that that's not some kind of dark force that's taken over and said, oh, I'm Archangel Michael? And that the false light can really show themselves as they look, you know, if you've been channeling beings, benevolent beings for a while, all of a sudden they'll slip in. Sure, and they'll feel and look like it's the same thing, but they're not. They're not.
Yeah, I've noticed that with a couple of people that I've come in contact with over the last few years, and it was almost like you know, you see them one day and they're who they should be, and the next day it's a different person. And I told a few people, like, hey, this person isn't the same person anymore. Well, I should say they're not getting their information maybe from the same place that they were.
Right.
And people would say, oh no, you know, you're wrong or this or that. But for me, it's just plain as day, you know, like,
yeah, right.
It would be like if one day you woke up and your skin was blue, and I'd say, hey, you have blue skin, you know, it's that clear to me. So it's a little frustrating when so many people don't get it, but they keep hanging on because, you know, opium or whatever.
Well, yeah, you know, and because they've gotten such a good message from this person, right? And they've been so well guided, you know, and then all of a sudden they'll end up being misguided, and then the person's not so great. You know, that's when they'll hit that wall, you know. And there are people like me that ended up start channeling, and they're a pure channel. But it's only for a certain period of time. This is not something you'll be able to do your entire lifetime, that you can make a career out of, like, you know, these people that I mentioned. You can't. Yeah. You cannot make a career out of this. This is fleeting. It's air. It's like,
it's interesting. It's almost like being a professional athlete. You have this window where you're really sharp and you're on it, you're the top, and then it's like you gotta, you know, before that last heavyweight fight, you just have to say, nope, I'm gonna retire as the champion.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I did. You know, I retired as the champion. When I moved up to Mount Shasta, I basically had some of my students that had, one of my students, actually, I mentioned them, and his son-in-law works in the entertainment industry and does Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola ads. That's Marty, you know, and Mark and Melissa. And you know, Marty, I was living in Shasta at the time, not here in Ashland now, but in Shasta. And Marty actually came up to visit me a couple of times, you know, to do some improvement of his inner senses and stuff. And then, you know, and in one of those visits, he said, Sonia, I want to be your manager. You're like, you know, like a celebrity manager. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not even in Vegas anymore. Listen, I don't care. You know, Mark has agreed that we're going to do a 2-hour taping at his house. I'm going to invite a bunch of people you've never met, that you've never channeled for, you know, and, you know, I want to present you to the entertainment industry, to, you know, all these agencies that Mark is connected to. We're going to send them out like 1-2-minute video of you. You know, by doing this 2-hour thing, we're going to pick the best of the 2 hours and send it to them. And I want to be your like road manager and get you gigs, and, you know, and get, because you need to be famous like these other famous psychics, you know, like you're the real deal. And at the time, you know, I was struggling, to be honest with you, when I was living in Shasta financially. And I was like, okay, maybe this is a door that I'm supposed to go through and open. And so Marty paid for my trip to go to Vegas. I stayed at Mark and Melissa's house. You know, they have a beautiful house in Vegas. And Marty came over, and he had all these people show up the day that I did the event. You know, Melissa did all my makeup. You know, I was sitting in this chair that was like a director's chair. Everybody else was sitting around me. We did this 2-hour whole amazing mediumship. We were doing mediumship. We were contacting people's families that had crossed over, people they loved. And I mean, one of Marty's kids, I forget her name, she was crying and weeping, you know, because her mom came in through me and just told her some incredible things that I never knew about. Marty never shared that stuff with me. And she was bawling, okay. I had other people. I had one guy that was there that was probably, he was in his late 60s, 70s, didn't even believe in mediums, okay. And all of a sudden I started giving him all this information about how his family had come from overseas, from Europe, what were in the States, and they were actually in the South, and that they were in like the war that happened during the independence. Okay. Never did I ever speak to this person. This man's mouth was like, because he didn't share it with anyone. Marty didn't even know about it. And I said, oh, and by the way, one of your great grandparents, you know, that's sharing all this information that he was, and I said, here's where you can find all the records, you know, go look him up. And I said, there, he hid a chest full of gold coins and all kinds of things for you. And he wants you to go find it and get it. And I kind of gave him where it was. You know, it was somewhere, I don't even remember where, if it was Virginia or somewhere around there. You know, but I said, you need to do all your lineage stuff and find this person. And I described him. I literally described what he looked like. I said, this is how old he was when he died. He was a captain. He wasn't just some, you know, soldier. I said he was a captain. You know, trace him back and you'll find it. And he's going to help you find this, you know, betroth you with your inheritance, you know, that it, yeah. And I went and looked at it remotely and I was like, and nobody's ever found it. It's still well hidden, you know?
Wow.
So I did stuff like that, you know, and talked to several people, and there was like 20, 30 people, and did mediumship for 2 hours. All that was done. You know, we were finished with that, had a nice dinner with Marty and his family. The next day I flew back to Shasta, and 2 months later, right? Because Mark, I kept calling Marty and going, come on, Marty, what's up? You know, why is this taking so damn long? And he was like, oh, Mark's really busy, you know, and Mark was doing this as a favor to Marty.
Oh, sure.
Okay. He wasn't doing it because Marty paid him 10 grand to do it. Because if Marty would have paid him 10 grand, Mark would have had the video done that day. But the video sat there, I guess, you know, in the can, if you like, for 2 months. And finally, when he got around to it, Marty gives me a call and goes, hey, Sonia. And I go, hey, what's up, Marty? He goes, Mark and I just went through the whole damn video, the whole 2 hours. We see everybody else. We could see everybody. We could see my daughter that was crying. We could see Melissa. we could see, you know, the guy you were giving all that information. We could see everybody that you talk to, and that, but you are veiled. What do you mean I am veiled? He goes, literally, there's a fog around you. All we could hear is your voice. We can't see you. We can't use this tape. Are you open to coming down and doing this again? I said, no, Marty. I said, I'm not meant to do this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you spent all that money to fly me down. He goes, it's okay. It was only $500-600, no big deal. You know, he's at Ventura. He fixes, you know, he does the crowns and stuff for dentists. So he has a pretty good living. And he was like, don't worry about it. And I said, I just got this really strong feeling, you know, this intuition that was like, don't go there. Don't go there. There's going to be danger. And so we dropped it. We literally, like, I dropped it, and I had to find another way to make a living, and I did, you know, and move on with my life. And that's been, my life has been like that, that I'm not to be in the limelight. I'm not.
Well, that's could be a good thing, you know.
Very good thing.
When I was trying to think of when this was now, I'm trying to think of how old my oldest kid was. About 19 years ago, maybe 18 years ago. I'm here in Japan. I was here in Japan. My wife's Japanese. So we're at this electronics store, and I'm holding my son. So he's small enough to where he's a baby. I'm holding him. My wife's off looking at, you know, whatever. I'm standing there looking at all the advertisements on the wall, and there's a famous singer.
I heard your video.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I realized this singer's a reptilian, and then it was just like, you know, that movie They Live, where they put the sunglasses on and now they can see things. It was like I didn't need the sunglasses from that moment forward, and I would go around, and I realized all these politicians and TV talents and musicians,
they're all reptilians.
They're all reptilians, and
yes,
you know, on the train, and I would see them, and then I realized, like, wow, anybody who's high up or in the entertainment business, they have a tough life, you know. And it didn't take me long to, you know, I was shown what's involved with being famous. If you're a famous singer, if you're a famous actor, actress, whatever, you go through some terrible stuff. And, you know, of course, now things are coming out with, who was that guy? The guy who was murdered in prison, you know, and all of this other stuff. And it's like, I was shown that years and years ago.
That's awesome.
And you know, I knew I was, you know, because in the beginning, you know, you're the only one, and you're thinking, am I really seeing this or not? I had 2 Japanese men in black come to my house, and they just made me so furious. They were there, I think, to warn me. It didn't work, though, because I was so furious that they would come to my house to do that. I was like ready to tear these guys apart. And long story short, they quickly left the location. But I realized, like, oh my God, this is the life for people. You know, so many young people, oh, I want to be famous, I want to be this and that. And I thought, boy, if you had any idea of what you're going to go through, you would run the other way so fast.
And that's basically what happened. I just ran the other direction. When that incident happened, I was like, I don't care if I can make $50,000 a month or $100,000 a month. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
And with this big mouth of mine that I have, where I speak my truth, they would have like 2 years of show and tell, and then they would have just, you're out of here.
Yeah, I was a number of years ago when I was doing stuff with Organite, I was connected with a guy who was a super famous psychic. I'll try not to give too much information about him. He was one of the first guys who realized computers would be big, and he owned a chain of computer stores up and down California. He was on the Oprah Winfrey show. He wrote books and this and that. And then he started to realize what was really going on behind the scenes, and he wrote a book about it. He was severely warned, told not to do that. He tried to publish the second one. His life got totally destroyed.
Yeah.
Totally destroyed. And it turns so universe made it so that he and I met up online.
Wow.
Two interesting things happened. One was I was able to buy half of his library of esoteric books, half of his library. And the
Whoa.
second one was because I was into Oregon and he knew that. And I had made some devices and posted some things, and I had some interesting stuff happen. So for whatever reason, he communicated with me. And he sent me a couple devices and said to me, in the future, you will be implanted. And these two devices will get rid of the implant. Gave me the instructions, and he said, hang on to these. Don't ever do anything with them. And this guy was down and out. He was homeless at the time, but he sent these to me. He wouldn't take any money for it. And sure enough, there was a time in the future, bam, these two faceless aliens got me in the shopping mall. And it was just it was the weirdest. I got rid of the implants. I still have the what would you call it? The remains of it in my arm. But yeah, you start poking your nose in the wrong places, and man, you will get shut down so fast.
Well, I mean, in a way, I feel like, in a way, this has also been their realm. I'll put it that way, because it's a realm for all of us,
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I can channel the consciousness of this universe. I can channel the consciousness, the Earth's consciousness. And that's one of the things that the Earth, and I did share that story with you, which I won't get into here. We could do that in another interview or whatever, if you like. But that I was told that I was a visitor here, and that I was told something that's very, very profound. That not only Terra, Tierra is what they would call it in Spanish, La Tierra, Earth. The consciousness of the Earth, the consciousness of this universe, is the most powerful, not catalyst, but it's the most powerful alchemist. It's like this is an alchemy universe. And whoever gets invited here, your energy does merge and it does become alchemized here. So the reptilians will be alchemized, any of these lower frequency races, because they are lower frequency, okay?
Yeah.
Will get alchemized. And that's their purpose here. And when I was told this by Terra, and I was told this by the universe, I stopped messing with other things that would have collapsed and caused insane disruption and disbalance that I didn't understand from this perspective of the human. But when I understood it from the perspective of not being in a body and being a body of consciousness, I was like, I get it. And I'm sorry I disrespected, my bad. I won't do that again. So that's the thing that I want to kind of share with people that are listening to this, that even though we go through all these weird experiences and pain and suffering from these lower vibrational ETs, because they are, there's a purpose of it, of us alchemizing a part of us that has that frequency as well, and to raise our frequency to a higher level. And the ultimate goal is kind of like the way that this universe's consciousness showed me. She said, I'm like a Venus flytrap. I'm this beautiful, the Earth is this beautiful creature, this beautiful radiant planet that has water, has trees, has sky, has all this beauty in it that we just like a Venus flytrap, right? The fly is so attracted to that scent that the plant puts out, and all of a sudden it lands on it and it's sticky and it gets alchemized. And it's no different for every single being that comes to this realm. It's that your soul is calling to be alchemized, to be transformed into a higher octave. So that's what alchemy is about. Alchemy is not about, grabbing a lower metal and turning it into a lower metal. It's about grabbing a lower metal and turning it into gold. So keep that in mind, that's part of our journey here of coming here.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what these tests are all about. And I mean, when I listened to your video about the reptilians, I was like, go Larry, awesome, you know, and especially the part when you were talking about going into that huge piece of wood and becoming the wood, and then
Oh yeah.
immediately we're able to send out all those like thorns or whatever,
Splinters, yeah.
splinters, you know, and how not only that, but you were able to take that frequency that was attacking you, take it down to the ground where they were all bleeding and dying, and then the earth just sucked them up. I just thought that was like, look at the power that we have, you know, and I truly believe, because we have this ability to be conscient, sentient beings with consciousness, that our powers are truly unlimited, and that's what these reptilians are so afraid of. That's where
Yeah.
all the lower vibrational dimensional ETs, extraterrestrials, interterrestrials, you know, all of them are deathly afraid of. And this is why in this time, there's so many of us waking up, right? There's so many psychics and people that have these powers. And it's because of the timeline we're in. It's because of the solar minimum. It's because of a lot of, the sun is actually changing our DNA, literally.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely. I can't prove it because I'm not a scientist. I just can feel it in my body.
Oh
You know, I
yeah.
can feel the changes in my body. You know, and we are being, so the way I can give you an analogy, we are like a human, GMO human that got GMO'd by the reptilians and the Anunnakis and whoever else tinkered with our DNA, because they were so afraid of us, and they're supposed to be the slave race, right? The slave race that they use to mine their gold, to like now they mine our energy. It's
Yeah.
not about gold anymore, it's about our energy. You know, all the way through to eating us, a source of food for them, okay? So we have these incredible powers. Superman is the real deal. That's who we are. In essence, that's who we have the ability to be.
Yeah,
To
I
have
would agree.
lasers coming out of our eyes, to be able to fly in the sky, you know, to be able to stop a train that's going 1,000 miles an hour, all that, we have those abilities that are dormant in us. And this junk DNA bullshit that, well, you know, you just have 2 strands and the rest of it is junk DNA. Scientists that don't understand this, that's what they say.
Yeah.
But you know, I do love what Joe Dispenza said about this. And he said, you have an equal amount of protein to an equal amount of DNA, and it's thousands of strands of DNA. And they're all interconnected. And I agree with him. And I feel like what the sun is doing is waking up that DNA and sliming off their GMO stuff that they did to us, so that we can become those very powerful infinite beings, you know, and have telekinesis to the nines, teletransportation without, I mean, there's ETs that are very advanced, that are very benevolent. I've been on their ship, you know, that create out of their consciousness, they create a ship and they can navigate to other star systems with their body. And it's not a technology that they built like we do. It's like they're using their inner technology. Like I said, these are high level advanced civilizations and beings that are very advanced, you know, and that are, you know, they have become unhinged from that GMO crap that was done to us, that now is
Sure.
sliming off of us, you know, and that's, I really feel like that's why there's this incredible need to control us the way they're controlling us with the masks and the COVID, you know, and now they're going to throw, you know, in 6 feet apart, and we're going to take a picture of everybody because, you know, if you turn into Superman, we want to make sure to get rid of you, kind of thing. It's like, you know, I kind of get a sense that like underlying thing is like, we got to watch everybody, because once they start sprouting and they become that, we're toast.
Yeah, you know, and I wonder how many people have achieved that already. You know, the other day my son and I went for a walk. We came back, it was noon. I said, I'm going to make XYZ for lunch for us. He said, okay, great, Dad. And I reached in this China hutch to grab a plate because I said, oh, you don't have a plate. And at that same moment, I was thinking in my mind about trying to put it into words here. I was focusing all of my energy, and I was going to spin around and do some goofy thing like I sometimes do. But I could feel I was harnessing this energy, and it was getting focused down into this tiny, tiny point. I was going to spin around and go, whoa, you know, whatever. And as I turned around, my wrist here, my wrist bone, hit the edge of the glass on the china hutch. And this is like 5 millimeter, what do they call it? Safety glass. You know, this stuff does not break. And it won't, you know, if you did break it with a hammer, it would just splinter, you know, it just turn into these tiny little pieces that look like kernels of corn, and it would stay in one. I spun around, my wrist hit that. It literally sounded like an explosion. This glass flew all into half of it exploded into the room, on the dining table, on the floor, and the rest of it exploded into the china hutch. Every shelf was covered with this glass. I stopped and I thought, my God, I must be just full of glass, you know, like it just hit me everywhere. I looked at my arm, nothing. I looked all over, nothing. My son came running, other son came running downstairs. Dad, there was an explosion. What was that? And my other son just sat there with his mouth open, and he said, Dad, you exploded that glass. How'd you do that? And the only thing I didn't tell anybody, I just told everybody, God, I must have hit it just right. And my wife's been having a heck of a time trying to get this glass replaced, because these glass guys come and they say, this is 5 millimeter safety glass. This does not explode. What did you hit it with, a hammer? What's the real story? They said to my wife. What did your husband really hit this with? Did he have a hammer or a sledgehammer and he missed? And she said, well, he told me he hit it with his wrist. And the guy's like, I cannot believe that. One guy said, I've been doing this 45 years. I've never seen safety glass do that ever. I don't know what to tell you. I haven't told anyone that as I was getting the plate, I actually was very relaxed, and I was focusing my energy to turn around and do something goofy. And I'm thinking, oh man, I had this happen one other time when I was a young kid, and I hit a door at our house, and the door was torn off the hinges.
Yep.
And I hit the door on the right side, and the hinges were on the left side. And I remember thinking, holy crap, I better not do that again. But the first time I was angry when it happened.
Right. This time it was just relaxed. So
yeah, it was just like the flow. So I've thought to myself for the last week now, man, if I could figure out how to channel that, and I'm probably not the only guy who's had this happen. I'm sure there are other people who've already figured it out. You know, you see videos on YouTube once in a while, some guy stuck in India, and he just gets out of his truck, looks around, and lifts up the back of this huge semi-tractor trailer and moves it, 6 feet, and gets back in his truck and drives. And you're thinking, wait a second.
Yeah. That's happening a lot. And I really feel like that's our DNA that's being cleansed. That we're being brought back to the original Adam of our true being. That all that other stuff is being sloughed off. Which if I was the reptilians and I was the the conquerors of this planet that had taken over for so long, and there's nothing, and that's why I really truly believe they were trying to build 5G, is to create that grid so that none of this would happen to us. And thank God that the earth didn't want it, the ETs don't want it, certain advanced ETs that have family here, inner family living in inner earth don't want it, that it's not going to happen that way, because they would have killed us all. That would have been the kill shot. And it would have happened within days, not months or years. This kill shot, all the birds would have start dying, all the bees would have died. We would have been like in the next few days next.
Sure.
And maybe the only thing that would survive would be the fish. Maybe. Because they're in a different environment in the water. But that's not going to happen. and I saw that, and I was given that information very clearly by these ETs that said, we're not going to let them launch any of these satellites. Any of the master satellites are going to be destroyed.
Well, that's good.
And we already warned them, we already told them that, but they don't listen. So, they're just going to have to learn. Like I've always told these ETs, and I communicate with them telepathically from time to time. They do visit me. And I tell them, look, you got to get up off of your Babel towers. You got to get off of this idea that because you're reptilian, you're a different race, you think you're different from us. You're not. You also have been created by the divine. You're also a divine being that was created by the same energy. You just have a different expression that needs to mature. That's all.
Yeah, and it's real funny because, we have all this stuff now, Black Lives Matter, and then I saw some people said White Lives Matter, and people were upset with this and that, and I look at this and laugh, and I think, if you knew about the alien presence on the earth, this idea of skin color would become, you'd realize how silly this is.
Well, like one doctor said, there was one guy that I saw in STG report, and I didn't know the guy was a surgeon. Now he's talking about politics, and he's talking about how the white hats are, working on trying to get us free from all this, from the one world order. And it was really interesting. He said, I had an incredible, at my university that I went to school at, the head, I forget what they call him, the head guy came in and told us, you treat everybody exactly the same. The day that you start treating people differently because of their color of their skin is the time you need to retire. And that really got impregnated in my soul, not in my mind, in my soul. And I'm going to tell every single one of you, I don't care if you're Chinese or black or white or purple. It doesn't matter what color you are. We're all pink on the inside. We're all pink, is what he said.
Sure.
So get that through your heads, that the only thing that's different is the color of your skin and maybe your eyes that are a little slanted if you're Asian. And that was so beautiful that he said that. And he was talking about what you're talking about, white lives matter, black lives. And he said, this is all a divide and conquer thing. It's all,
that's exactly what it is.
That's the only game they know how to play. And I think there's enough of us awake that we're awakening others to the fact that you don't need to play that game, that we are a single organism expressed in many different bodies here. Yeah. And if we come from that place of realizing we're not going to eat each other and we're not going to abuse each other and we're not going to kill each other and hurt each other, and we start synchronizing energetically with each other, we're a power that these ETs will voluntarily beg to get off this planet and leave us the hell alone.
Yeah.
Seriously, I do see that as our future. I do, and I do see, like I've told several people in our group that I do see that even if they're trying to start a civil war, right? Supposedly Asia is trying to start a civil war in the States so they can take over because we're weak and blah, blah, blah. But in the end, what I see is that if it does become a civil war, it doesn't matter because we're still going to free ourselves from the New World Order. That this is not something that they can anymore control. This is something that the Earth Mother, and that's my message to all of you guys, because you listen to me. I'm talking to the reptilians and all these beings that are low level frequency beings, that it doesn't matter what your idea is or what you think, and that you can see 50 years into the future and you can, try and manipulate that. She's no longer going with your program. So you either get on the same level as us and start working in unison with us, or I suggest that you leave like the rest of your guys left in 2008. There was a huge vacancy of reptilians. There was tons and tons of UFOs that were leaving the planet from the sea because they had a ton of bases in the sea. And millions of them were leaving off the planet and left their little low, what I call, they're actually like a hybrid, part human, part reptilian. That's what we have.
Sure.
But all the real reptilians that don't shapeshift, that are reptilians, they have the skin of a reptile, they have the face of a reptile. They're humanoid-like, because they stand on their two back paws, and they walk around kind of like, I don't know, like Tyrannosaurus Rex, kind of, and has long arms. All those guys are gone with their tails and their wings. They left because they knew this time was coming. And they knew that there was some big earth changes they didn't want to get swallowed into. So they left to another planetary system. And they left you guys behind. So get smart. Get smart about this and realize that you've been abandoned. Even though they told you the story that, oh no, you're going to stay there and watch everybody and keep control of things. No. They're long gone. They're not coming back here. Now you're left. And if you don't shift in consciousness like we are, you're also going to get left behind in a different way.
Sure. Now, switching gears here,
Sure.
what's something that you've seen intuitively or psychically about the near future that excites you, that you've seen and you think, wow, this is going to be great. I'm excited about this.
It goes hand in hand with what I talked about in terms of if there is a civil war that breaks out in this country, which I have seen, by the way. What I saw in the end is that we would be victorious, and that excites me. That we would get, what I saw is that civil war would start here. It would be fomented by the dark forces, to try and have somebody else come and take over, but that's not going to happen. And what I saw in the end of this 2.5 year, I call a civil war revolution, whatever you want to call it, is that we would win. In the end, we would win. We would get all the corrupt officials that are they call themselves communists, but what they really are fascists. They use the word communism, to cover themselves, but they're really fascists. And the Third Reich never ended, and that's who's behind all this. But all those are going to lose, is what I saw. And what I saw is that the movement in the U.S. is what's going to propel, and this is already happening in France, it's happening in the UK. All these other countries are going to go into rebellion. It's happening in China. It's happening in Japan. It's happening everywhere. And what I literally saw in my vision, and this was a vision that I got years ago, where I was shown this in this timeline, I just didn't know when the timeline was going to be, is that there would be a rebellion in the US for 2.5 years, that we would actually overtake the government. We would put in our own good people. We put all kinds of restrictions. It was going to be very restrictive at first, because they took away all the rules and regulations that prevented this commingling, and people that work for the that are coming into DC and putting in all these laws, that are actually in bed with the people at Wall Street and can make money off of that. And there's all this collusion going on everywhere, and what I saw is that all that was going to be removed, and we had to go into a very stringent governmental state where none of that is allowed. There's no collusion. If you work for Goldman Sachs, you cannot be also coming into DC and trying to change the laws to benefit you.
Sure.
I also saw that DC was going to be gone, all of DC, that it was actually going to be lit and burnt to the ground.
Wow.
All of it, the JOD, FBI, all the alphabet agencies that are subcontractors of the United States federal government contractor, because they're a contractor of ours. And I saw it all collapse. And then what I saw is that we were really going to take office in the real, our real unincorporated seat of power is Philadelphia. And the Philadelphia now is a mess, in that it was going to be revitalized, and that was going to be the if you like, central seat of government, that was going to take care of all the other states. I actually saw that all the states were going to be run like their own countries, but we were going to have treaties with each other. and that we were going to have a treaty with, like, there was going to be a not centralized government, but Philadelphia would be kind of like DC, like the federal government.
Sure.
That would unite all of us, because united we're much stronger than little tiny countries. And if you were going to live in Seattle, Washington, and you actually wanted to move to Los Angeles, you would have to get a permit to move to Los Angeles, because it's California, it's a different state, it's a different country, kind of like Europe. The EU kind of changed that a little bit, because if you're part of the EU, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
They're trying to duplicate what they did here 150 years ago, but I saw that all of this was going to go back to the people. I also saw, which is very exciting for Americans, that the military complex realized that they had been duped by these criminals that are in office, and that goes for the Pope and the Queen of England, who are manipulating all this, and then they have their minions here. And they turned, and that whole thing that happened in DC that I saw is that actually whoever was president, asked to fire on the people, and there was people that were marching, and I saw 20, 30 million people, by the way, surrounding DC. They cannot control that many people, and that did it peaceably, by the way. It wasn't like they were burning things, and no, it was all peaceably, and they surrounded all of DC, and there was a lot of military that were vets, that were with the people, and that whoever was the president at the time asked to, because they were confronting him and confronting some senators and confronting the VP, and that he asked one of his captains to fire on the people. And, he was like standing there frozen. American guy's not going to kill other Americans, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the seas of people parted, and this group of 10 people came up to him, and it was his mom and his dad. And she looked at him and she said, "Son, are you going to shoot on your mother and your father? Is it worth it?" And all of a sudden, in my vision that I had, and I had this 3 or 4 years ago, this guy turned around, who was a captain, put the gun onto the heart of whoever the president was at the time. It could be Biden, I don't know. I mean, what was weird is in the timeline that I saw, it was Biden and Obama. Now, obviously, that's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
But those are the people that were there that were telling them to shoot on the people. And that's who sold us down the river, basically.
Yeah.
And so that captain turned around and put his gun and said, "You are under arrest for high treason." And then they came to arrest all of them. And what was funny is at the time that these people all marched into DC, because there was 30 million surrounding DC, the senators, nobody could get out of the White House or wherever they were having, wherever the Senate gets together and has their meetings. And they were every single one of the people that were involved in this were all arrested. All of them. They were all arrested. And the state assemblies, which are really the government of their country, decided to have trials for these people, fast trials, and to make it public. And so that, to me, is something that's been hidden. We have a lot of hearsay of who died, that they were murdered or this, and we have no idea. It could all be bullshit. Yeah. It could all be a lie that they're just, they don't do what they used to do. Like, I remember when I was a kid, when somebody, whether it was a senator or a president, or they showed the coffin and they showed the person that was in the coffin dead.
That's right, yeah.
They don't do that anymore. They just tell you, "Oh yeah, this person died." "Oh, I was supposed to take your word for it?" I don't think so. I don't buy it. It's like when they said, "Oh, Hillary's dead," and and Bill Clinton. I was like, no, they're not. And Obama's certainly not dead, and Michael's not dead, his boyfriend,
Yeah.
It's like, no, and that's what they've done, and it's like they've done this whole Wizard of Oz thing. So I think that's going to be great, that we, the people, are going to come back and rule ourselves and be self-ruling after these 2.5 years of tumultuous change that's going to happen. And I think and that the New World Order will not win. And what I saw from there is that because of what happened in the US, because that's a key point, and that's why they're attacking the US last. And they've been trying to get guns off of us. But
Yeah.
I just talked to a friend of mine and he said, you know what, Sonia? You can't find any guns in the gun stores. People are buying them like crazy. So much for your, your false flag shit that you do to try and get guns and ammo away from people. Now people are really armed and dangerous, and so
That's right.
I just see that because of that, we will be the liberation for the planet. It's because we have a militia, an organized militia that's abiding by the Constitution. That's key, because there's militias that don't abide by the constitutions that are being funded by George Soros. Okay.
Yeah.
And other bad entities, lower reptilians, because he is a reptilian. You can totally see it. I see him shape-shifting it all the time. George Soros, his son, all of them are reptilians. I totally see them shape-shifting. If people realize that the people in the Senate and the people in government, and I will exclude Trump, okay, from that, are all reptilians, and maybe that's why he said, I'm going to clean the swamp, is because he's referring to these reptilians that are hybrid. They're part human, part reptilian, like you saw, like I've seen my whole life.
Yeah.
So you're not alone in that at all, because, I knew about it in 90, was it 90? No, I wasn't even, it was 86, 87. Oh
Wow.
God. I found out about it because of David Icke, actually. A friend of mine gifted me these books and I was like, oh, I can't deal with this. I can't, it's too much. It was too overwhelming because I had an experience when I was 11 years old. And the movie The Exorcist came out, and I remoted myself to the Vatican, underneath the Vatican. And there was this huge freaking reptilian underneath the Vatican that had wings, that they represent themselves as a devil. The representation of a devil.
Yeah.
Except for the claws of they changed that, the hooves of a goat. Okay, and kind of half body of a goat. That's bullshit. They're full-on reptilians. They have wings. They have a big tail. They're huge, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 feet. They're kind of like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
They are, the real reptilians. And that was so frightful to me. And I remember standing there totally paralyzed, and that the divine came in and said, just shine your light, Sonia, just open your arms. And that would be the opposite of what you would do, right? In that case, you'd want to run. But it was like, okay, and let your light out. And I opened my arms like that and let my light out. It was so intense that it just brought me back into this dimension. And that all disappeared. So when I read it in David Icke's books, I was like, I saw this. I can't fucking believe this is true. Because I encountered a reptilian when I was 11 years old.
Yeah.
And it was damn scary. Okay. And I was like, I don't want to read this shit. I don't want to know that this is really true because I've already experienced it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, God. So, it's a whole evolutionary process, I guess. So that's the thing that I'm most excited about, is that we are going to have our freedom, that because we create our freedom here, it's just going to spread like a virus, like the coronavirus, worse for them all over the world. And it's going to give the guts for people to free themselves from the New World Order.
Yeah,
and
it's going to
make people realize that we are, and we're getting these superpowers like you're getting, Larry, like I'm getting, back, that we won't need weapons. All you have to do is think about, I'm going to put you up on the ceiling. And if you pull a gun out, you're going to point it at yourself.
Yeah.
And if you shoot that gun, you just committed suicide. That's the kind of powers that are going to come back to all of us that I see so powerfully. And it's very exciting to be in that experience, in that realm, and I think that we're going to get to see some major changes in the next 2 years, 2.5 years. And there's going to be some big surprises for the reptilians and the New World Order that think they can dominate all of us, because what I keep asking about this, and I'm not asking from a place of ego, you know, or self, like what I want to have happen. You know,
Sure.
I'm asking more from that neutral state. And they keep showing me, and they've showed me that. They said, how would you like to be trampled over by 8 billion people? Because they're only like a million and a half, maybe at the most. How would you like to get trampled by 8 billion people? I was like, I wouldn't like that. And they're like, no, you would suffocate. So I do see that as a reality, you know, that will manifest itself. That's brewing already in the quantum and the invisible world.
Sure. Now, I want to jump over to cryptocurrencies because we're talking about the future here. And I think maybe both of us agree that cryptos will be part of our future. I don't know how long, but I think they will be. And are there any cryptos that you're really excited about? You look at the cryptos and you go, these here look pretty good for this reason.
Yeah. You know, there was a couple of cryptos that I was, one of the people that came and read with me the other day, she alerted me to them, right? She made me aware of them. And these cryptos are for people that are, you know, kind of struggling. You don't have a lot of money. If you have $200, $250, you can get 1 million of them,
Sure.
right? So one of them is The Key, which is TKY, and the other one is Dent. And right now they're at about 1/4 of a penny.
Wow.
Both of them are. Okay. One of them is at 0.0000254. The other one is at 0.000225, so it's less than 1/4 of a penny.
Yeah.
And I see them shooting up to $1.
Wow.
By not really this year, by next year. Like
Okay.
maybe spring of next year. So you won't have to hold them very long.
Yeah.
You know, so if you get 1 million of them, there's $2 million you just made out of $500 investment.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, you know, they're, I mean, we talked before, I know that you've been in cryptos longer than I have. And there have been the last several years, these YouTube personalities who were pumping this crypto or that crypto. And then some people sprung up with their own, you know, they were these different psychic people who are calling themselves psychics. That's just how I'll say it.
Sure.
And they've developed followings and they were telling people, buy this crypto, buy that crypto. And I think for a lot of people, the advice given was so bad and so many people, you know, lost their shirts, so to speak.
Right.
I think for you know, because the people who are in cryptos were all early adopters.
Right.
So you know, people were in tune with things enough to get into this, but then they were unsure of what to buy, and they listened to all of these personalities give bad advice.
That's kind of funny that you say that, because there was one of my clients, actually my psychic clients from Oranum, got into digital currencies because she's kind of, you know, she's a techie girl.
Sure.
And she created this company that actually trades for you with algorithms, and he makes money for you when the market's going up or down, you know, which is pretty cool. Her name is Erin. And she's the one that got me into these different coins. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. She just said, look, it's the wave of the future.
Wow.
And then when she said that, I got it like, and I already was mining Bitcoin. I had no idea about these other coins. I had no idea.
Sure.
So really cool that she's the one that told me, you know, look at Digibyte, look at Doge, look at Redcoin, look at, let's see, Ethereum was already going pretty up there by the time I was looking at it. Ethereum, Litecoin, of course, Bitcoin. Let's see, there's a couple of others that I'm missing. She basically was like, you should get some of these. You know, they're cheap. They were really cheap. They were kind of like what I just said.
Sure.
You know? And so she got me on that road. I gotta give her credit for that. And I actually picked, you know, there was several, and the reason why I did this is because this is an industry, okay? Marijuana is an industry, and it's going to become, and it's becoming legalized. It has. And so at the time I was like, I was really intrigued by that. And there were several coins. There was one that was like hemp coin, and there was another one that was what was it? Marijuana coin, and all these different, and I picked pot coin. I was like, really? Like energetically, I was like, pot coin is going to be huge. It's going to take like 5, 6, 7 years, but it's going to be humongous because that's what they're going to trade. When we end up in only digital currencies and no more paper, this is what these guys are going to use on the blockchain to trade their pot, their marijuana for money.
Sure.
Well, I got 1.4 million of them, you know, for 1/10 of a penny. You know, and I actually traded part of my Bitcoin for that. There was a bunch of coins that I actually traded for a Bitcoin. You know, not a full Bitcoin, but a part of a Bitcoin.
Sure.
And so that's one of my favorites that, you know, if you have time, if you don't have time to hold it and you just want to get a bunch of money right away, that's not the coin to get.
Sure.
That's a coin that you sit on, you know, for another, I'd say another 3 years. I've been sitting on it since 2018, you know,
Wow.
so by the time 2022, 23 comes around, it'll be worth like $1, you know, or $10. You know, it'll go up all the way to $100, easy. You know, then there's one of my very favorites, always has been, I don't know why, and I didn't even know about the white papers and what they do, was Digibyte. Just love Digibyte. Love Bitcoin Black. I just got introduced by SL to Bitcoin Black, and when I read it, you know, she didn't tell me what her reading was, but when I read it, I was like, oh my God, this coin's going to be explosive. You know, it has the security, it has all the things in place, and it's for the people, and people are going to gravitate more and more towards that and being decentralized, you know, because of all the controls they're trying to do, that people are going to do anything they can to awake people to get into decentralized kind of currencies. So that's one currency I'm very excited about. Doge is going to be good. You know, Doge, and actually it's going up now. You know, and I said that a few months ago. I said, if you have Doge, hold on to it because it's going to go up. And SL said the same thing. Red coin, I don't see it really. I may be seeing going up to $1 by the end of the year. You know, but if you're holding 8 million of them, there's $8 million you just made. You know, and if you bought them at 1/4 of a penny, and there's going to be a lot like that that's going to happen. What other coins can I think of? You know, what's interesting, and SL and I were talking about this, is I had a dream about red coin, and the other coin that came into my dream, and I didn't know which one it was. I just saw a gold coin, a gold token. And I asked people in the group, which coin do you think that is? Because it didn't show me the symbol or anything. It just showed me a gold coin. And somebody said, it must be Bitcoin Gold. But they just got hacked a few days ago. But maybe that's a good thing. You know, before it just explodes, they can secure it. You know, they can do the patches and whatever they have to do to secure it. But Bitcoin Gold is one that I also see that's going to be big.
Okay.
You know, really big. The other coin that is also, that's, you know, what's really interesting is the coins that I see that are really going to start escalating. Like Brave has a coin called BAT, B-A-T.
Okay.
That's a good one. That's going to explode because they're using it to pay you for advertising.
Yeah.
You know, they're using it for all kinds of things. So those coins are going to be worth a lot of money in the near future, you know. So BAT is another favorite one of mine. Let's see what other coins I can think of. I don't have my my wallets open or anything to let you know. I also saw, like, I'm accepting 13 different coins on my website for readings. Okay. You know, and I don't know if I can give you those because they don't show them right there and then. They just show that you can pay with them.
Oh, okay. So somebody could go to your website and see which ones you like.
Yeah, which ones I picked, and there was 13 of them. They had like 60 or 70 of them, but I picked these 13 coins to get paid with.
Okay.
I see these 13 coins as being valuable, you know, really valuable over time. So there it is for the coins.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
And
welcome.
then let's see, the next thing, there's a lot of talk recently about moving from 3D consciousness to 5D consciousness. What are your thoughts on that?
Let's first explore and understand what 3D consciousness is and what 5D consciousness is.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, so 3D consciousness is materialism. You're a materialist. You're attached to your material world, your car, your houses, whatever. What you own, all the money you have, you know, possessions. It's all about possessions. It's all about being possessed by your possessions. Ego-based, right? It's totally ego-based. It is reptilian in nature because it's all about competition as opposed to collaboration and cooperation. That's a 3D world that we've been living in for eons, and that we've been coming and reincarnating back into Earth, experiencing it over and over. So it's also a very physical low density, which the low density moves at a lower frequency. So things tend to move a lot slower, right?
Yeah.
So instead of you being able to be a billionaire overnight because you thought about it, or maybe over a year, you manifested it in your head and now it's out picturing, that's not going to happen to you for another 20, 30 years because you're in that low density 3-dimensional frequency. First dimensional frequency, I'll explain it and you'll get it, is a very dense, it's almost like what they used to call the black goo. That's first dimension frequency. Absolute density, complete density, magnetic density, everything is very slow, very, very slow, very dense and very, like hardly moves. Like the energy is super duper slow. Second density or dimension is a little bit, it's starting to unplug itself from the goo, the black goo. And it's more now receiving more light, more information. It's a little bit faster, you know, and I see it like in creation is like, that's when the mycelia came to this planet. That's when the mushrooms came to this planet, started building other stratospheres of nature and consciousness, you know, and then 3D came because according to Paul Stamets, who's the prime mycologist on the planet, we descended from mushrooms, from the consciousness of mushrooms. Our bodies, DNA are very, very, they're more, this is what he said, they are more in parallel and connected and have similarities to the mushrooms than you do to a chimpanzee. How about that? But that the chimpanzees also came out of that, right? So they have that DNA too, and that intelligence. And it's very interesting that you live in Japan, because in Japan, they've been studying this mycelia in a lab where the mycelia is creating these new channels and byways to get to certain places intelligently, way more, and they're actually mimicking it so that you can have a underground, what's it called, subway system.
Oh, okay.
You know, and they're using that for technology too, by the way. I'm sure they are. And that's all coming from the intelligence of mycelia. In a way, mycelia is smarter than we are. That's what I'm trying to say. Wow. But, you know, to get to that is that we're descendants of that. We are part of nature. Okay. So one of the things that I want you guys to keep in mind is to follow this thread of consciousness of 3D. What created 3D, right? And the low density, and you need to have polarities. You need to have a negative pole and a positive pole electrically. You know, and electricians would totally understand this. Meta would totally get this, right? You know, in order to create friction, in order to create life. And that's the polarity universe we live in. Well, now let's go to 4D. Okay, so that tends to have us be physically material. And you can either be physically material, or like some beings on the planet have chosen to be nature driven. And I'm talking about the tribes in maybe the Amazon rainforest, right? They're not going to feel a thing when all these earth changes happen. They're not.
Sure.
They're already used to this. They sleep outside with the ants, with, you know, all the bugs, you know,
Yeah.
they're adjusted to it. They know what herbs to take. They're you know, they're connected to nature. They're a part of nature. They haven't separated themselves like we have. We're going to have to feel the blow of it much harder than they are, because they're already a part of it. So they live in a more 3D reality that's more about nature, and it's not materialist.
Okay.
It's just about living in nature and being part of nature. So there's two 3Ds that I'm sharing with you on the planet. Then there's 4D. The 4D is more, now we're getting into more of a elevated, not on the planet, astral. And to me, that's really the astral plane. And this is something that I did channel, that the beings channeled through me, that they showed me. And they said the 4D is really where all of man's mental garbage goes. So all the negative thoughts, all the, you know, all the inventions about monsters and all that stuff is fourth dimensional. This is where, you know, they conjure jinns to come in and attack people, and, you know, and
Oh, sure.
you know, big demonic entities, and all that is 4D. They don't belong here. I've literally had experiences where I had demons that were from the 4D begging me to send them back to 4D. Vampire, there was that in Vegas, by the way. There was literally a vampire, a vampire that physically manifested, that was conjured, because there's lots of black witch covens there, that conjured him. And he walked into an AMP store, not walked, floated into an AMP store. And like the son of one of my students saw him and was like, you know, totally freaked out. And when she told me, I immediately connected, because I'm like that. I connected to that energy. And this guy visited me the next day, the next night, you know, at our place that was in Summerlin, in a really nice house in Summerlin. And there was a chair outside that he was sitting in that I told him to sit. And I said, you're not allowed to come into the house. I knew he was coming because I could feel his energy way before. Put salt all around the house, the window seals, the door jambs, everywhere. Around, there was a place in the bedroom that I had, the master bedroom, and there was the bathroom, and then there was a place up above where you could go up into the attic. And I actually put salt in the carpet around the area so you couldn't come. And I said, I've salted the whole place. You step in here, you're gonna be toast. He'll be gone. That was not his purpose, but I was a little freaked out, and I just wanted to be protective, you know. And so this being came to me, this fourth dimensional physical entity, and told me, I don't belong here. I know you can send me home. Deal. I said, deal, done. The next morning I woke up. I opened up, because there was a nice like shade in the bedroom that had these glass sliding doors in the bedroom, the master bedroom that went to the backyard. And I actually opened up the, you know, and she had these shades that actually were afraid to be able to sleep. So I moved the shade, not the shades, but I guess the curtain, and then opened the shades. And there was, the chair wasn't there, by the way. It was one of those chairs that you lay, lounge chairs. Sure. It was right there, like facing me, facing my bed. But we were separated by glass, basically, you know. And that chair, like, and my roommates like said, they came over and they go, did you move that chair? I'm like, we had a visitor, and they're like, yeah, we dreamt about it. Because they were quite psychic.
Wow.
And it's gone, and I was like, yeah, he's gone. You know. So, you know, that's fourth density. That's fourth dimension. That's a fourth, it's one that's conjured up by trashy thoughts of humans that get kind of like, that energy gets sent up there, and it kind of stays there stagnant, and then people can use it and manipulate things and that sort of thing. The next energy is the fifth dimension. Well, it kind of coincides with the fairy kingdom, with the elemental kingdom. You know, it coincides with the air. It's fast. You know, like fairies can manifest things instantly, right? You can manifest things very fast. It's a very fast moving And I don't know if anybody's noticed on the planet, but time is moving so fast now.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
It's not just for us adults, right? Because I used to hear my parents, when you're young, time moves so slow. When you get older, it's like time moves too fast. It's not like that anymore. Because I talked to some kids that are 5, 7 years old, and they're like, where did the day go? It's already night. I'm like, yeah, isn't that wild? So faster speed of frequency, faster speed of energy, faster speed of manifestation, faster speed of conductivity, faster speed of connection to the universe, into your universal beingness, to your infinite self, as I like to call it. That's 5D. Faster, things are going to manifest a lot faster. That's why I tell people, really, you've got to pay attention to your thoughts, be very mindful. If you're having low density thoughts, negative thoughts, if you're having, thoughts about hate or anger or fear or loathing or whatever it is, work through that. I mean, work through that pretty quick, and don't project it out, because that's what you're going to experience back. That's 5D.
Yeah.
So I feel like right now, 1 foot is in, for some of us, not everybody's in 5D. Some of us are in 4D and 5D, or 3D and 5D. Or some people are just fully, I'm not there yet. That's why I said some people are fully in 5D now, Sure. I mean, the videos that I've seen on YouTube are just mind-blowing about people coming in and out of dimensions and jumping into this dimension and jumping out of it. People appearing, disappearing. There's a lot of that going on right now. And that's because the frequency is moving a lot faster. So you
Sure.
have entry points. Whereas when it was much denser, you didn't have that ability to just come in or leave. Or some guys that I see climbing buildings with their bare hands and their little tiny shoes that you would slip off of before. I mean, there's guys that I've seen on YouTube that jump 20, 30 feet from one building to another. That's Superman powers. That's not, I can't do that. But that's 5D. That's living in 5D. Right? The other guys that are blowing my mind right now are the squirrel suit guys, I call them. The fly guys. They have the squirrel suits that they fly with.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I'm telling you, I call them the Ophaino. These are the bird tribe, ET bird tribe that's in human bodies. Because they only feel good when they're flying. They don't feel good when they're on the ground.
Interesting.
And some of them, because they've entered into 5D, I mean, they're flying at 150 miles an hour, you guys. Just with a little suit, a little like air suit that gets filled up with air.
Yeah.
And they're navigating through, you should see the videos. I mean, and the footage they've given us, it's like, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's phenomenal. And when I saw that, I was just so blown away. And I was like, there's the bird tribe. They're back. Some of them sacrifice themselves. Some of them really don't want to be here, because this is not high enough density for them. So they crash into rocks. And what I tell people is like, God, when they crash into that rock, in a second, they're on the other side. It's like instant. The ones that suffer are the ones that end up falling in trees and end up falling on the ground, and they break their legs, and they have to recuperate from that, but even then they don't stop, and that's a 5DB, somebody that's living in the moment, not attached to materialism. They're free. They're truly free. And they don't care if they're in this dimension or in another. They're just like, and there's some of them that are now landing without any gear. No parachutes. In water, on ground, not breaking a bone. Explain that to me, please. If that's not a literal example of a 5D being, I don't know what is.
Now, continuing this 5D topic, I've wondered about food for a while. How do you think food will change, or our need for food, once we move into 5D?
Our need for food will change. That's my sense. is that our the need for eating food and eating dense foods, right? And we are omnivorous, is going to change. It's going to get lighter, and in some case, some people will be able to be fed by light, just light, no water, no dense foods, no fruit, no fruitarianism, no veganism, none of that. I do feel there's going to come a time, and I did get shown that by Terra, by the earth, one time when I was up in Mount Shasta again, that there wasn't going to be any more eating of each other on this planet. So she was going to move out of that place of being the ultimate alchemist into being this planet of like fauna and flora and beings that live here energetically. Like you would become an energetic being. That means you don't have a body.
Yeah.
That to me is not 5D. That to me is 5D is like when you're unveiling the body and you're becoming a more energetic body. Okay. 6D, 7D, 8D is just energy. You're just energy. You're plasma.
Sure.
You're not even physical. And there's a lot of plasma beings that come and visit us from other stars, our star places. So that's where this evolution of this universe is heading to, and I don't know if it's heading there because of where we are in the universe, because everything's moving here. Nothing is stagnant. Nothing stays still.
That's right.
If people think like, oh, when I die, I'm just going to have a dirt nap and I'm going to be still. Think again. Everything's in motion. Everything. There's energy is always in motion, and it just transforms into different levels of energy. So I think there's going to be choices when we really all step into 5D. There's going to be a choice of us not eating any plants anymore. Because if you don't think plants hurt when you eat them, think again.
Yeah, and that's one thing I like when I talk with vegetarians, because vegetarians tend to have this sort of snooty attitude like, oh, you're a meat eater and you're harming animals. And I remember seeing this study by an ex-CIA polygraph expert who found that plants do react, plants do feel things.
Absolutely.
And then when I started meditating on it, I noticed like, wow, I'm getting information from these plants. And I could only get that if they were alive and understood things in a similar sense to where I do. So then I realized, wait a second, if a piece of broccoli feels pain and discomfort being cut, is that any different than yanking a fish out of the ocean here and eating raw? It's not. So
it isn't, and this is why I think the Native American Indians, I have great reverence for them, because they always revered anything they put in their mouth before they put it in their mouth. And it didn't matter if it was plant life, if it was fruit life, if it was animal life, if it was, like they said, two-legged, four-legged, plants. They ate insects too. There was a time when they had to eat insects because there was no food on the planet.
Sure.
And that's why, like, I have reverence for when I put stuff together, I thank the plants for giving up their life. I do. And I tell vegetarians and I tell vegans especially, because they're the ones that have their head up their ass. I'll just put it that way. Thinking that, oh, I'm a vegan because I don't want to hurt any animals and I'm not eating any animal byproducts. And I'm like, the soil is full of animal byproducts, honey. Full of it.
Right.
It's full of insects that have died. It's full of, feces. It's full of animals that have died on it. It's like, that's microorganisms. That's how we have microorganisms. Otherwise, we wouldn't have that. So you having this hallucination, when I feed my plants that I'm growing for food, which I don't know why they're so slow. Maybe I planted them too early or too late. You know, they're really, really slow. But, and maybe it's because of the weather, right? Because in May, we usually have very hot weather. May, June, July, August. So by September, you have cornucopia of food. And we're still in July. I mean, I still have 2 months to go. But when I feed my plants a probiotic milk that's out of kefir milk, that I grow kefirs for people, kefir grains. And
Okay.
so that milk, when it gets really fermented, the kefirs can't keep growing and they can't keep eating it. So I use that milk, I don't throw it away, and I feed it to my plants. And I also put minerals in that liquid. And they love it. They love the protein. They go crazy. I mean, I can show you plants in my house. The leaves of a creeping Charlie that are this big.
Wow.
This big. It's because I'm feeding it protein.
Yeah.
You don't think plants like protein? You don't think they're carnivorous too? Think again. Like, it's so irrational, you know? It's all, what you got to understand is that it's all a blend of all of us here. And the reverence that I have for like the meat that I buy, that I eat, or the fish, or the chicken, or, you know, whatever animal that I'm going to consume, is I thank it first for giving up its life so I can continue mine. And that's a Native American Indian tradition. That's what, you know, they say it in Cherokee. I don't know the words in Cherokee, so I'll speak them in English. You know, that's one thing. The other thing is that I am integrating with that food. I am a part of it. You and I become one. You know, and that's why I think I'm really glad that we have this grand solar minimum and that the food collapse is going to happen, the commercial food collapse, because kids that go to their store, the grocery store with mommy, don't even know where that piece of meat came from.
That's right.
They don't know where that leg of chicken came from. I went to a boarding school when I was a teenager where we killed our own food. If we were going to want to eat it, like one time I said, I want to make a turkey mole for the whole school, right? And I got this mole from Mexico, and you know, chocolate mole is so good, you know. And I was like so excited, and you know, the principal of my school said, "Oh yeah, you know, we've been growing those turkeys. You're gonna have to go out there, grab one of those turkeys, cut its head off, take all of its feathers off, you know, and then you will cook it for all of us." And that's exactly what I did. And I knew where that came from. And we're going to go back to that. And I think that's even more healthier because then you know where it's coming from. You can honor it. I mean, in that, the boarding school principal was a Cherokee guy, you know, Native American Indian guy. So that's why he had that, you know, he had the animals there so that we could learn, you know, where they came from. You know, and how to butcher them and do all that stuff. And, you know, he said, when you cut that head off of that turkey, thank it for giving up its life to you and to all of us. Do it in gratitude, because when you do it in don't do it in gratitude, the food tastes terrible.
Yeah, you know, that's something I've talked about with a lot of people that I've known. I've been, you know, blessed to have this life where I had two grandmothers who were great cooks. My mom's a great cook. My dad's a great cook. My brother makes some of the best steaks I've ever had in my life.
Right.
And my wife is a good cook. And I've been places where people have had good ingredients, but it didn't taste very good.
Right.
And the only thing I can guess is that it's the attitude of the person cooking it.
It is. And it's the love they put into it. It's the passion and the love they put into it. Like, I'm a great cook. And I went to school in France and actually went to study under a teacher that was a cordon bleu teacher.
Okay.
So, and my mom was a phenomenal, awesome cook. I mean, the food she cooked, and she could cook Middle Eastern, Russian, Chinese, anything. It was amazing. And I love to cook. And that's, you know, and I think that's why my food tastes so incredible. And anybody that eats at my table is like, wow, you should be a chef. You should open up a restaurant. And I'm like, that would ruin it. You know, I'll cook for my friends. I'll cook for me. And yeah, it's the love that I put into it, and the love that I thank all the plant matter that I'm using to cook with, the animal, you know, the flesh that I'm using, all of it. And it all circles back. You know, it's like I've always, and I've been in the wilderness, like I told you. I mean, we could have easily been eaten by a bear, you know,
Sure.
and that experience with the fairies and the unicorns. My life has always been really blessed and protected. And I've had mountain lions that never attacked me, that were up on a tree growling at me and warning me. I have pray here, back off. And I very gently, slowly backed off, walked backwards very slowly, and then walked very gently away. Never got attacked by wildlife. But the way I always saw it is like, you know what, if I am ever attacked by wildlife and they eat me, it's okay. I eat flesh.
Yeah.
Maybe it's part of the whole process, you know, here, and I'm okay with it. Some people are not okay with that. Some people are like, oh God, I would hate it. I'm like, no, it's okay. You know, I'm just going to ask that animal, if he does get me, to end my life quickly, to just like fast. I won't fight you, and just end it fast. And they will. They are very telepathic. Animals are extremely telepathic. They're extremely intelligent. They just speak a different language that we don't understand. And that's one of the things that really irritates me, when people go, oh, cats and dogs are not very smart. They're stupid. I'm like, no, you're the stupid one. I mean, my cats today were playing in the bathtub, pulling out these little rubber balls that they play with. And my cat brought one all the way over. That's the first time he's did, and meowed at me. He was so proud of himself to come over and look. You know, and when I did, and I took it back into the bathtub, and he had pulled all of them out, like, look, Mom, I pulled all of them out. Isn't that amazing? You know, and I'm telepathic with them, but for people that are not telepathic with animals, you're missing such a big part of your life, and a big picture of how animals are very intelligent. They have that spark of the divine in them too. They just came in a different form.
Yeah.
So I respect all life. Ants, spiders, you know, all insects, creepy crawlers, all of them have great intelligence, you know, and we just need to be more aware and more respectful and more honorable. And so that's one good, you asked me, what do you see that are good things about this big change that's coming? One of the big, really great things is that people are going to get down to earth again, literally down to earth. And that if you want to have protein in your life, animal protein, because we do need it for these bodies, unfortunately, they're made that way, you're going to have to go hunt it, you're going to have to butcher it, and you're going to have to eat it then. You know, and it's going to be the same with animal husbandry. If you have animals on your property, some of them are going to be for eating, some of them are going to be for helping you, you know, grow corn or grow whatever you're going to be growing. And I think it's really important to come back to that and look at how, I mean, when I sent you that video of what's happening in Japan, look at how she can tear up a bridge, she can tear up a road that's concreted in 5 milliseconds. All that can be gone and it's earth again. And that's, you know, that's basically what we got to come back to. We got to come back to that place of being united with nature, and being united with nature's, like, different events that are happening. Like you said, you know, you're not being affected by them. Everybody else around you is, but you guys aren't. And part of it is the consciousness. Part of it is what you're doing with the Organite, you know, but part of it is your connection to the elements, you know, and your like frequency that you're putting out there for the elements to, you honor them so they honor you, right? They're not going to come and tear your house down. And there's a big part of that. That's 5D, by the way.
And it's funny about Japan, you know, I've been here, oh boy, I think about 16 years, a little over 16 years in total.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone has this idea that, you know, Japanese are so, you know, they're so peaceful and they're good to the environment. In fact, in Japanese, everywhere, every company plasters this phrase that says, good for the environment, or easy on the environment. We're helping the environment, but this is a country where they just destroy the environment. You know, for years, Tokyo would take its garbage, its trash out into the ocean and dump it.
Dump it.
And they did that for years and years and years. And to me, it's unbelievable you could even think that was a good idea or an option. And you know, people throw trash I walk along the ocean almost every day, and the amount of trash that they just drive by and throw it out their car window, it's shocking. And this good friend of mine, he always says, you know, look at all of the earthquakes and the natural disasters have really ratcheted up the last 5 years here. And my friend said, I'm not really religious, but I think God is pissed at Japan. There's no other explanation about it. And I've said to him, well, maybe we don't have to say God. It could be just Mother Earth has said enough is enough. I'm going to start wiping some of you people out.
No, that's true. That's true. If you're not in concert with nature, nature is going to rebel. And nature is what we are. So that's the crazy part, right?
Yeah.
Like we separated ourselves from nature, so we see it as an enemy or something, but we're not. We are it. We are nature. And if you become in concert with it and unify with it, like I tell people, you know, and there's a lot of volcanoes in Ashland. There's a lot of volcanoes. And there's a big volcano in Shasta. There's a whole Cascadia that could go off. And I tell people, I'm totally happy to go if the volcano goes off. Totally. I won't even know it. In a minute, I'll be gone. Yeah. Woohoo! And all my stuff will be in ashes, or it'll be buried, and I'll graduate. What's so bad about it? You know, I'm in concert with nature. I'm totally okay in shedding this, you know, vessel and moving on to a higher frequency. And you know, so it's like all these earth changes are going to happen all over the place. Yeah. And I saw that, like I said, in 2007 when I was channeling, the beings were telling everybody. And the one thing that, you know, I have several people that come to me and ask me, sorry. Jesus. They, Rebecca, hey, I'll have to call you back. I'll have to call you back. Okay, bye. There's a lot of people that are worried about living and their I understand that, your families, and where is it safe to live? And I got to tell everybody, what was channeled through me, through these pure beings, is that there's nowhere to hide on planet Earth in this cycle. And that goes for the reptilians that build their underground cities. There's nowhere to hide. Everything's going to get purified. And the way out of it is to have a pure heart. That's what they say.
Yeah,
they say,
exactly.
Pure heart, you will be untouched. You have a heart that can be corrupted, you will be destroyed. And there's a lot of animals. I didn't understand this, right? Because they showed me, I was standing on a beach, and they showed me how there was this violet rain coming down that was like a gas coming down and burning everything, turning everything to ash. And it hit my body, and I could feel a little bit of the pain, and then I just surrendered to it. And then my body started to shine. So instead of turning to ash, it became pure light. And I was watching the fish in the ocean that had been corrupted, that had been poisoned and had all this, and they all turned to ash. You know, and I saw this like violet rain, and there's a video of it actually when I channeled it, still on YouTube. That this violet like gas was going down to and they said it'll go all the way to the center of the earth and back. There's no stopping it, and whatever is corrupted will be destroyed and turned to ash. I still don't understand. I don't know if it's a parable. I don't understand it completely, but I did understand this. They said if you have a pure heart, you'll be untouched.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, I've seen a lot of footage from the rains and the flooding and landslides here the last week. And my wife and I saw this video, and it was two old ladies. Like the one lady looked older than dirt, you know, just super old. And the the newscaster said, you know, how did you make it out of that landslide, that flood where you were? And she said, well, the water, you know, swept up. It was waist high. It carried me along. And in front of me was a telephone pole. I just wrapped my arms around it, and for some reason, I was able to stay there for several hours. Now, she's not the kind of lady with the strength to hold on to a telephone pole for a couple hours. And another lady said, yeah, the water rose up to my neck, and then it stopped, and it carried me along to a place where I could grab hold until someone got me. And I said to my wife, see, if it's your time to go, you'll go. If it's not, you will be fine. It doesn't matter what's going on around you.
Right, right. You know, and it kind of goes to that pure heart that if you know you haven't hurt people on the planet, you haven't hurt animals, you haven't done this intentionally, let me put it that way. It's all been, you know, out of ignorance, you know, or arrogance, you know, and it's been unintentional. You're free. You're free. You literally are free. You got a ticket back home free. And you can choose to either reincarnate again, or you can choose to, for this, I tell the earth, I go up, this is my last tour here. Not coming back. Seriously. And I haven't changed that. I mean, I've been like this since I was like 30. I said, when I go, when this body is shed off, I'm not coming back here. I'm done. My last tour. And every time, Larry, I have memories, okay? Every single freaking time I've been here has been at the end of a cycle. Every time. Well, not really every time. I mean, I was in the 1300s. I did reincarnate there several times, and I was a witch, according to the Roman Catholic Church. And they drowned me, you know, with a gunny sack. I remember they tying a gunny sack to my feet in a lake, you know, and tying it to my feet and calling me a witch and saying if I can swim up and get rid of the gunny sack, then, you know, I'll be saved. And of course I drowned. You know, they burnt me at the stake a million times. You know, I came with such a venomous hate towards the Roman Catholic Church. I never understood it, but I had this venom against them. Now I understand it because I know how evil they are, you know, and how they pretended to be the holiest of holies, and they're the criminalist of criminals, you know, they're the Cosa Nostra, absolute, you know, and so it's like, you know, and now I understand, but the most memorable, I mean, I remember being here at Mu, Lemuria, Atlantis, and now I call it Babylon. This is the towers of Babylon that are falling. This is the Babylonian timeline, you know, and I'm at the end of the Babylonian timeline. This is it, guys.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So, well, on that note, maybe we should end this. I think I can't really see my clock here because I don't have my glasses on. It looks a little fuzzy, but I'm sure we've gone over 2 hours.
We went 2 hours and 22 minutes.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Now, I didn't get to all my questions, but then we did talk about lots of other interesting topics, so I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And,
great. Well, I want to invite you to do a show on my, you know,
sure,
on my channel. So we'll arrange that, and, you know, maybe, you know, I'll be asking you questions then. You know, and I did a little intro promo video for you because of that whole thing that got debacled, you know, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. When you didn't show up, it was like, I created that video of the reptilians. I put that up. One of your crypto videos I put up.
Oh, really?
We all prayed for your safety in case you were being pummeled by the, you know, the floods and all that stuff. So it was pretty awesome.
Oh, very kind of you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you, Sonia. I'm just going to stop recording here for a second.
Got it.
Let's see, how do I do that? I think I need my glasses.